This week, the Reserve Bank of Australia Monetary Policy Board kept the cash rate on hold at 3.6%. Keeping rates on hold was universally expected. The Reserve Bank's taken a very cautious approach to rate cutting so far, and a back-to-back rate cut was never on the cards. In explaining their decision, the Reserve Bank cited some renewed upside risks to inflation, their assessment that the labour market is still a little tight, and the ongoing recovery in private demand. The recent August data for the ABS CPI indicator does indicate that the September quarter CPI, and in particular the trimmed mean measure, will be higher than most people thought a few months ago. And the Reserve Bank has taken some signal from that in its assessment of current inflation pressures, although it didn't give any steer on what it thinks that means for future quarters. More broadly, the Reserve Bank does seem to be putting a little bit more weight on the upside scenarios for inflation, more so than the also present downside scenarios. One example, although inflation on both a headline and an underlying basis are both within the RBA's 2 to 3% target range, what did the RBA choose to highlight as the heading in their media release? Not that inflation was at target, but that the rate of decline in inflation had slowed, even though this is exactly what you'd expect the closer you get to target. The Monetary Policy Board and the Governor were remarkably non-committal about the path for the cash rate from here. This went beyond the usual reluctance to give forward guidance about specific timing of rate moves, and indeed they were relatively vague about their reaction function, that is, how they would respond to particular eventualities and particular outcomes of the data. And that's one of the reasons why the Reserve Bank's been remarkably hard to read in recent months, and why market pricing has tended to bounce around quite a bit as the data flow has come in. Given that the RBA clearly has the upside risk to inflation more front of mind than the downside risks, a rate cut in November is far from assured. But it's not completely off the cards. We still have another month of labour market data to come, along with the full quarter of September quarter inflation data. The RBA will be revising its forecasts ahead of the November meeting, and there are a number of opportunities for the Reserve Bank to articulate its thinking through the month of October in their scheduled public appearances. Our take is that the rate cutting cycle is not over. Monetary policy is still assessed as being a little restrictive, and inflation is in the target range. If it is the case that the Reserve Bank delays the next rate cut into the new year, we would expect that they would end up having to cut more than they currently envisage.
The content of this recording is informational and of general nature only, and is not intended to constitute a research report or reflect any recommendation or financial advice. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs, and investment decisions should not be based on it. You should obtain your own independent advice before proceeding with any investment decision. Whilst every effort has been taken to ensure that the contents are correct and any opinions, forecasts, conclusions are reasonably held based on information at the date of recording, Westpac does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of the statements or information contained in this recording, and any liability therefore is expressly disclaimed to the extent permitted by law. None of the material included in this recording should be copied, published, or reproduced in whole or in part without the prior written permission of Westpac.